Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
Now I have to say this week I genuinely don't know what number this is, but I think it's 285 in Sounding the Shallows. If it isn't, I don't care really,
Well, I
because I
haven't
think it's
checked,
something
so
like
there
that.
we are. It's something like that.
And
Yes,
we
it
both
is.
had colds this week,
We
so
have?
we're still a bit sniffly and coughy, so excuse us if there's any sound effects connected with that. But
And
we're
today
all right.
it's a little bit warmer, very windy where we are, but it is a little bit warmer. So we're feeling our colds are on the,
We were
on the
saying,
wane, and the warmer weather is a little bit hitting us. So we're feeling a bit more positive, really.
interestingly, our colds have pursued exactly the same path, and we were saying to someone today that at the beginning of one of these things, you want to die, really, basically.
No,
And then
you do.
in the middle, no, so do you. You just never admit it. In the middle, you think, well, I don't mind living for a little while, but not much longer. And then suddenly one morning, like this morning actually, I woke up and I thought, oh, maybe it's worth living after all. It's a bit of an exaggeration, I know.
Well, it is a little bit of an exaggeration, bearing in mind what's going on in the world.
Oh,
I think,
no, but for me, that's how I felt. I don't care. Anyway, yeah, it's been an interesting week in many ways. I mean,
well, we've been snuffling away quite individually. So, what have you been thinking about in your corner?
well, the interesting thing about being thrust into a sort of cabin in your head at night is that some things affect you more than they usually would. And one of the things is we've just been watching the latest episode of Shetland, which for those who don't know or haven't seen it, is a detective series set in the Shetland Isles.
Oddly enough.
And it really is one of the best made detective series we've ever seen.
I am sorry, because I know that there are people who join us from Canada and from
That's right,
Australia and from Germany, etc., etc. So I'm sorry if you haven't seen it, but it's really good.
To show you how it gets to people, the last series, right, there's a character, one of the main characters called Tosh, a woman who's a detective. And at the end of a program...
An episode,
yes. A caravan explodes, apparently with her in it. And so nobody knows what happened. Is she dead? Probably. Is she injured? What's happened? A couple of days after that, I was in a car park somewhere, and a man came and chatted to me as we both waited.
And he was Scottish, wasn't he?
People to pick us up, yeah. And he was Scottish, and we talked for a while. And then I said, just guessing, I said, but is she all right? Nothing else. Is she all right? And he said, I hope so. He knew exactly what I was talking about. We both wanted to know if this lady called Tosh was, and she lived, and she's in the second series, which is now on. But we have enjoyed it. Anyway.
And I think, that was an experience that was far more common when we were growing up, and when we were young adults, whatever, and there was no streaming service, and everybody watched the same choice of 3 programs. So there was much more of a united feeling of people being involved in the same thing on the same night.
That's right, and they are keeping this strictly to the evening on which it progresses, aren't they? So
well, probably somebody will know otherwise.
Oh, probably. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
so come on, you're talking about this.
Very
what
good.
affected you in it? Because that was a long time ago. Surely you're not still worrying about whether Tosh survived
Tosh is
the fire.
doing well, but it's a fairly dark series, this one, which isn't usually quite to our taste because we're getting a bit feeble as we get older. But in terms of sensitivity and things, but it's so well done, so well acted, etc. So anyway, there's a character in this week's episode actually 2 characters who've both been in care when they were young girls.
Oh, and they were separated, weren't
And they were separated, and
because they were taken. One was put into an adoption straight away, and the other was put into a children's home. That's right, isn't it?
Well, that threw me back to all the years we've spent working with children who are in care. One, both in Sussex, in the south of England, and in Birmingham, which was a much tougher, secure unit. With I think there was seven bedrooms, and that was for teenage boys. The other one was for girls and boys from about 12 to 18.
Norfolk as well, so a few other.
Norfolk as well. Yeah. So we've known a lot of kids who've struggled out of this, and it just brought back so many memories, some very vivid. I mean, the chaos that reigns in children who've come out of chaos, and their desperate search for firm ground.
Yeah, but interestingly, one of the things that hit us, doesn't matter if you've seen the programme or not, because I think you might connect with this. One of the girls, the one that was taken away and put into a children's home, said, "But you don't understand, we were together in the chaos." And that really hit home for me, because I thought it's almost summed up what so often happens with children, that they can hang on to each other within chaos. And we've seen it all over the world, haven't we? We can see it on the news constantly. And we've seen it when we were working alongside one or two charities. I was thinking particularly, we had the privilege of working alongside Toybots for a little while, didn't we, in South America? And that's all triggered off loads of memories, because we have another programme on television at the moment called Race Across the World, in which they are in some of the areas that we were in.
Yeah, that's right.
And so many times we found that there was, it's easy to look at a group of children and think they must be troublesome because they're a group. But actually, for a lot of them, it was survival, wasn't it?
It's true that for children who've never known what we call normal life or settled life or whatever it is, they are definitely agnostic about the possibility of success. And we've seen it in so many ways. We've seen children destroying their possibility of success because they're sure it's going to go wrong. And it's easier and quicker to sabotage it.
Of course.
So that then you won't have to face the failure at the end. And it's very hard for those who haven't been in the middle of that to understand what that means for.
But I think that work did teach us how important being part of a group is. And we had one experience, didn't we? It was in Peru. And we'd met some wonderful workers who were working with children. You know, they're feral as far as the police are concerned. A lot of them are living on the streets, have been since they were babies, and they've learnt how to survive, and they have a kind of community on the streets. Well, then we met educators working, just going out there and waiting for the children to sort of arrive, because where else would they go? But they see somebody who cares about them, and they come and they draw pictures, and at least for a little while, everything in their world is safe. Well, then we were told we were going to meet some teenagers, weren't we? And I don't know if you remember, but we went and stood on this bridge, and there were no teenagers there.
Well, we sat by the bridge, didn't we, and watched the bridge. Yeah.
Right. And then gradually, if you remember, these kids sort of crawled out from underneath the bridge and came and joined us as a group. And if you would look at them, you'd think, oh my giddy aunt, these are, because a lot of them were sniffing glue to just make their lives not too terrible. A lot of them were quite physically disfigured. They just looked like a group of little old men, didn't they, really? And they didn't want to see us particularly, and we had no idea how to talk to them or what it was that united them, but we discovered something quite remarkable.
Well, this is ridiculous. I mean, we've often talked about how the thing that makes a difference is not the thing you would have planned. But as it happened at that time, we knew somebody who worked for Manchester United, and we were able to get badges, Manchester United badges and pictures And many of the kids in South America, they know football.
Yes.
They know everything about the people who are in the British League, the English League.
Right. But especially there was somebody from Peru playing in one of the teams at the time, I know. But the point was that suddenly, Adrian, you brought these cards out, didn't you, and these badges? And we were united by United. We really were. All the barriers for a little while went. And it was like talking to any teenagers, any teenage boys, anywhere really.
Yeah. And then what was it happened? Because they all said they wanted to share something
Oh,
with us.
right.
Was
Well,
it
we talk
food?
about being united. When you go to any countries that you're not used to being in, there are lots of warnings about food and water, and that you shouldn't really drink anything, as far as one can see. Certainly don't buy bottled water off the street because it might not be sealed properly, etc., etc. Well, one of the boys, so delighted by this unity that we'd found over the football, gathered together some tiny coins from each of them and went off and bought
Oh,
something
that's
that
right.
was
No,
a
I
sort
really
of
had forgotten what it
yogurty,
was.
ice
Yeah.
creamy thing.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, we had been told, don't touch anything from a street vendor. What would you have done? It was passed, it gets worse, if you like. It was passed, wasn't it, from each of we passed it around this group of children onto us and then round again, licking this yogurty ice
I
cream.
remember
thing.
two thoughts that occurred to me. One was about Paul when the snake bit him in Acts.
Did you think that at the time?
Yeah, but because everyone said, "Oh, he isn't from God because the snake bit him," and then he pushed it off and he wasn't harmed. And I thought, I just want to be like Paul. I don't want to be harmed by this. And the other one was remembering watching Meatloaf on breakfast TV.
Oh no,
Getting
no,
Ruby.
no. Do you have to share
I'm
this?
going to share it. He was chewing a great ball of chewing gum.
Come on.
And Ruby Wax, who always wanted to appear wild and free, he said, "Well, you have a chew on my chewing gum." So he took out this great big lump, and she obviously thought, "I'm going to have to do this and put this." Anyway, but actually, it didn't matter in the end.
Well,
I mean,
we were
we have
okay.
been so seriously warned about so many things.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we.
But I think just for that little while, and I mean, sometimes that's all can be offered, isn't it? For a little while, everything can feel normal, and I think that can happen within any family as well when things are going wildly wrong. You know, sometimes it's when somebody's died, isn't it? And
Yeah.
for a little while, you sit round a table. I remember when your mum was in hospital just before she died, we met up with one of your brothers and his wife in a Chinese restaurant just round the corner from the hospital. And for a little while, it just faded enough to be
Yeah,
able to
true,
cope with it.
yeah.
And at the end of this time, do you remember, they all just disappeared again? It was like the Pied Piper. Suddenly they'd gone and we had no idea where they were or how long they would live. We know that because of all the glue sniffing, they often had quite short life expectancies, but a golden moment that we hadn't provided, but we were united by United for that little while.
We had some fascinating experiences, but one thing we learned from all that and from working with kids a lot, and I just from being alive, I suppose, is that being in chaos with people is often what is needed to actually be, if not happy, at least willing to be in the middle of what is going wrong and not keep trying to put the damn thing right, because it's a privileged thing to walk into the chaos with some people when they've been in the middle of it in the way that certainly some of those kids there have been, and they don't. It doesn't cost a lot except a willingness on my part. I can remember sometimes to simply be. And I'm sure I've told this story before about the boy in the secure unit who kicked off and shouted and screamed and swore and stopped in the middle and said to me quite politely, "You know I have to do this, don't you?" And
and then carried on.
I said, I do, and we carried on.
You
I
know-
held on to him. He made a lot of noise, and then it ended.
It
But
reminds me of one of those cartoon ones, where all you see is lots of sort of exclamation marks coming
That's
out
right,
of
yeah.
a great ball of a fight.
but actually, for a moment, he let me into the middle of his chaos.
Yeah.
And certainly, we talk a lot about prayer and praying with people and all that. And sometimes, and I know we've said this before, all people want often is to be heard, for you to walk into the darkness with them, and to not say, I don't go there, I don't do this, I don't talk about that, I don't. None of those things, but to simply be there for a while.
And to be seen, not just to be heard, Adrian, but to be seen. So I know that the advice continually is that if you, instead of just passing by somebody who's sitting on the street, that you look at them as you say hello. You don't kind of waft past. But it isn't that easy. We were very fortunate because we were working alongside or witnessing alongside people who were involved up to their, I was going to say up to their eyebrows. I don't know if that's quite right. Up to the top of their heads and beyond, and all we were doing really was watching. So it wasn't very difficult for us. But I think this winter's coming, and my goodness me, it's been cold. And there's probably a thing that we could do to make a bit more of a golden moment for somebody, even if it's just speaking to somebody who's been on the, on the cash out for most of a day, or. But that sounds a bit feeble, really. Maybe we'll come back to this and think of some slightly greater challenges.
I was reading something this week that I wrote years ago, which I'd really forgotten about, and it was about being in a supermarket. And I was in the queue going up to the till, and there was a woman there who was really obnoxious. And her husband was
I think you've made it clear.
Quiet, humble-looking man. And I was behind them, and she said all these things, and I sometimes, I'm not...
To the person on the cash
To
till.
her husband and to the person on the cash
right,
till.
okay.
I sometimes wonder whether I say things it's better not to think or better to think. I don't know. But I said to her, and these, I can remember my exact words, I said, do you think it might be possible to find a different way to talk to people than the way you're talking here?
Whoa.
Well, so for those who hear that, this is clearly the cue for, think of this, various possibilities. The husband suddenly turns into a great defender of his wife and says, no, you don't talk to my wife like that. The cashier says, oh, no, it's nothing, it's all right. The woman turned to me and smiled and said, I think you're right. I think I could handle things differently. So I thought, save the world there. As they moved up the queue, and the husband had looked, sort of shaking his head with a little smile. They moved up the queue. I heard her launching into him as they moved away from the queue.
Oh, that's not quite the miracle I'd hoped for.
No, but it's the truth. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe there was one little memory left in her about something that happened in chaos at that moment that might indicate. So I don't know. I don't know, but sometimes you can only get into things by doing things that are not expected.
Well, I know some of the people who listen to us have a lot of experience of helping people, and other people have a lot of experience of coping with massive difficulties and all the rest of it. So it'd be great to hear from you whether being with people within the chaos is something that holds you, that helps you. And we'll speak to you again next week.